Smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. FarmBoys Podcast, take 9.
We have a kid that's going to Texas next year. We have a kid going to Oregon State. A Pitt kid, had a kid at Wisconsin, I'll have a kid at Stanford. Probably what I'm most proud of are those kids that get to have that experience going to a junior college, an NAIA school, a D3 or a D2 school as well.
This is a FarmBoys podcast with top recruiter in the United States for girls volleyball players that want to go to college. 4 years running from Salt Lake City, Utah, Tawna Werner. So what do you think are the top 3 things that college coaches either ask you about kids, and this can be at any level, or that they look for in players? So this is FarmBoys Podcast. We have Tawna Werner on here. Tawna is the top recruiter in the United States. She's based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, works for Club V, and for 4 years running, she has had more kids go Division I, Division II, NAIA, and junior college, and Division III than any other recruiter for high school girls volleyball in the country. It's great to have you, Tawna. Why don't we just start off by you giving us a breakdown of when a student athlete should start the recruiting process, what age, what grade, and just some of the basics, and we'll just kind of buzz right through this and you get to lots of questions that folks want to know.
Okay. Hi. I like to start with educating ninth graders on knowing that the first and most important thing is to start gathering your resources. Ninth graders are gathering. They're finding out what schools, what geographical area they'd like to go, how far away from home, what types of programs. If you are a high-level club player, then this is the time for you to start doing that. If you are a lower-level club player or just a high school player, I would recommend waiting till your sophomore year. And the way you do this, if you're at that high level, is you want to start off by gathering film at your club tournaments. You want to start making highlight reels, and we continue to make these every time you have a tournament. So you want to have no longer than 3-minute highlight film of you being able to show your skill in game-like situations. Go ahead.
Where should mom or dad help film this from? It's either going to be mom or dad, or maybe even a coach sets it up. Should they put it right on the kid? Where should they be filming this highlight reel from?
There's a lot of platforms now where clubs have a program they use. It's called Huddle or Ball Time. There's a lot of different ones, and sometimes coaches or a parent rep will set up film. That's super helpful because those are really easy to make film from. If you don't have that, then your parent or a friend or a relative that's there, you can set it up on a stand, a phone, an iPad, to the middle back of the court. At these qualifiers, that's super easy to do. Same side of the net, middle back. If it is hard, go to the left back because you can see the whole court. If you get in a pickle and you have to go to the right side, it's my least favorite because you don't see as much, but it's still behind the player so you can see their movement, how high they jump, how they move laterally and side to side. Okay, after you make your film, you're going to put together an email. I have an email template, but your email should include an introduction of yourself. That introduction is going to talk about where you've played, how long you've played, some of the positions you've played maybe, especially you can add high school in there, where you go to high school, your academics, what you enjoy doing, a little bit about your family, and then how you have trained to become a volleyball player is really nice. And then you want to leave it because you're a freshman, somebody at the end of that email that they can contact because they cannot contact you. So you say something like, if you have any questions or want more information on me, please feel free to contact our recruiting coordinator or my high school coach or my club coach. And you leave contact information for those. And I have templates for that, but you can find those anywhere to help you write that.
So should ninth graders be attending college camps for the reason of, hey, I want this coach to see me? Or should ninth graders be attending college camps and other volleyball camps to say, hey, I want to get better?
So what I tell kids that ask me that question is, you're playing high-level club and we've made like a list of like 40 schools. Obviously, you can't go to all those camps. So is it reasonable to go to camps that you go like a day to that camp? You go to a day to this camp? Yes, they'll make you deals and they'll let you do that. So I tell freshmen, it's not essential, but if you really have a list of schools that you want to get looked at, you should be attending camps just to get to know the coaches, the program, and the philosophy. Maybe you go to a camp your freshman year and you're like, I really don't like how that coach coaches. Don't go back to that camp the next year. Gives you a little more information. So just to end on what ninth graders should be doing, in that email, you want to let them know where they can watch you play. You want to constantly be sending this out before every tournament. Give them a list of your schedule, what team you're on, where they can find you. And the number one thing is to make sure that you have your own university athlete account. It costs some money, a one-time fee, but it puts you on a program that when colleges are at the qualifiers, they're able to pull not only your club up, but your personal information and find you and where you're playing.
Okay, so let's talk about 10th grade now. Sounds like we have the 9th grade basis covered. Anything different from what you've already talked about from 9th grade to 10th grade? I'm assuming that we're going to do the same things. We're going to, if we didn't start in 9th grade, we're going to do exactly what you said to do in 9th grade in 10th grade, correct?
Yes, but I want to be very clear here. I think 10th grade nowadays, especially with new rules and such, I think that is like the ultimate time because you're preparing for your June 15th date where coaches can talk to you before your junior year. So I think that the 10th grade for high-level kids is really important. I feel like you do all the same things. You let them know where you're at. You send the email. You get film. All the things we just said about 9th grade, yes, but you're doing it on a regular basis, and there's probably communication coming through someone to let you know who's interested at this point. They're talking to a coach. They're talking to me all the time about how they want to talk to this kid on June 15th.
And okay, so what's significant about the date, June 15th, and does it apply to all levels, junior college, NAIA, Division III, Division II, Division I?
No, because the levels that are looking at sophomores are only your Division I and Division II the majority of the time. Your NAIA, D3, and JCs, they don't know what they need that far out yet, okay? So we're talking a Division I, some high-level Division IIs are the ones that are preparing for that June 15th date. Those two levels cannot talk to you till that date. They can send out information about their school. They can send out information about their camp. They can tell you that they can talk to you about that, but they can't have a recruiting conversation with you outside of a camp.
Okay, and so then the same question applies. If I'm a 10th grader, do I want to go to camps for coaches to meet me and see me, or do I want to try to go to camps just to get better?
Oh, there are some camps across the country that are camps set up to get kids better, but college recruiting camps aren't that. They're prospect camps. You're going to those camps to showcase yourself, to learn what that coach wants, and to learn that environment and philosophy. So you go to the camps of the programs on your sophomore year, if you're a high-level kid, of the programs that are in your top like 5 to 10, because you're trying to get seen and you're trying to have the opportunity to be recruited to that school.
So as a 10th grader, should I have someone reaching out to coaches on my behalf if I don't have a recruitment coordinator like yourself? Is there any difference between my mom or dad talking to these college coaches versus a high school coach, a club coach, an aunt, an uncle?
It's best if it's not a relative. It's best that it is a coach. I'd like to say your club coach because that's generally where they're going to run into any type of competition. But if you're in a situation that your relationship is really good with your high school coach, you could use them as the point of contact. I have found in very big clubs, so for kids that are playing in big clubs, this information gets lost amongst your coaches too. And there's a little bit of competitiveness in the positions when you're coaching kids. That's why recruiting directors or coordinators is so important in big clubs. If you're not in a big club, your coach is going to spend a lot of time helping you get recruited if the director of the club isn't, okay? And yes, you want somebody talking in your behalf. You want somebody that's telling the coaches about you, and coaches want to talk to somebody about you anyways. They want to know how you are when they're not watching you.
So with 10th grade being the perfect time, is 11th grade too late? Again, we're going to do the same things we did as a 9th and a 10th grader. Maybe I'm doing it for 2 years straight, I guess. But I guess let's look at the difference between what 11th grader should do versus that 9th or 10th grader.
So if you're a high-level 10th grader, you know your top 10 to 20 schools going into your junior year. This doesn't apply to you, okay? If you are just coming into the recruitment process your junior year, I'm telling kids, get busy in the summer getting information out. Get busy during your high school year reaching out to programs. And your first club tournament that you can get really good film, you are going to send a highlight film immediately before your first qualifier. Because we all have kickoff tournaments that we can get film from, and then they go to the big qualifiers.
What about practices?
I've helped kids use that before. It's not ultimate, but if I'm in a pickle and I have a kid that is just starting and we've got to get coaches there, like to maybe a local tournament, maybe they're a lower level kid, or maybe they just haven't had that opportunity to be on a high level club team. I want to be very transparent here. Sometimes there are really good kids that don't get on this team, and they are very good. It could be because of where they live. It could be because of where they came into. So yes, I would use some practice film. Occasionally we have a coach say, I want full film. I just want to look at full film. That's usually like your junior colleges that can't travel or NAIA schools. They'll want to see a whole game film, but that's not super common. Some of them will say, I just want to see you hitting. I just want to see you passing in practice. We can use those, but the ultimate film to have is a highlight film in a competitive game.
Okay, so if I'm a junior and I have not started the process and I really need to ramp it up quickly before my first tournament, and then from there, am I doing what, the 9th and 10th grader did? I'm just keeping in contact, letting them know where I'm playing. Am I going to any showcases that some of these tournaments have? What else do I need to do as a junior who's gotten in late?
The best way I explain it to kids, the freshman and sophomore year, I say it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I get to that junior year after they've started their junior year in high school, I say, we're doing things fast, and yes, it is urgent, and we are sprinting. So I help them create, and if I'm not there for you, I want you to create it. We're creating that list of dream schools. They're going to be shorter, a lot of schools in the middle, and maybe some fallback schools right away. And finding out what schools are recruiting your position helps take that piece out. So you can spend a lot of time just sending emails and they're not even recruiting. You might have to do that and cast a huge net all across the country. But if you have somebody that can help you figure out what schools are looking for what position, that cuts a lot of that work out. And you can get busy and send those emails with film and introduce yourself. Get them to your tournament. Get to showcases that are held. Every qualifier usually has a showcase for juniors and seniors. And those showcases, if they are having a lot of, make sure you check what attendance of college is. If they're having a lot of colleges there, you have the opportunity to be seen, and that always helps.
Okay, now moving on to our senior year, is there anything different that we haven't been able to do between our freshman, sophomore, junior, now senior season? Obviously, I'm really late. I've decided I wanted to play college at the last minute. I fell in love with it. Can I go to the college and tell them how bad I want to play and say, hey, I can practice with your team, I'm really good enough? What can I do as a senior?
Most of the time you're talking about those kids being kids that are probably going to be potentially going to junior colleges, NAIA schools or D3 schools. Maybe occasionally you've got a D2 school that's still looking for somebody, but you're going to have to get yourself known by them quickly, and you probably are going to have to use some sort of resource to find out who's looking right away. If you don't have that resource, you're going to have to send out so many emails and film. You're going to have to make phone calls and try to get them. You've got to do a lot of work. It is a sprint. However, I want to be clear here. Seniors who have not been recruited yet can still get recruited by junior colleges and NAIA and D3 schools, especially if you go to a showcase.
What age can I make my visit to the campus and they can actually talk to me? And what age can I call them and talk to them whenever I want?
If that is a D1 or a D2, it is as of June 15th, entering your junior year. You can always talk to them if you are at their camps. You can go anytime to their camps and you can talk to them at camps. You cannot visit and you cannot talk to them off camp until June 15th of your junior year. You can start going on visits to D1 and D2 after August 1st of your junior year. That date could change this next year, but it hasn't yet. To NAIA, D3, and JCs, you can go to their campus, and I tell kids this all the time. Go to campuses when you're out. Even if you're a freshman and a sophomore and you don't know if you want to go to that level, go visit the school. Go to the campus. As many times as you can go to a campus, it gives you a lot of information to know what you want to do. And for any of those freshmen and sophomores that are high-level kids wanting to get on campus at a D1 or D2, you can take an academic tour, and I can let the coaches know that you're so interested, you're there on an academic tour, and that's super helpful. They can't run into you and talk to you, but they can talk to me about you being there. And that's a great start.
What if you're not a part of their club? How would they have somebody else do this?
They would have a coach reach out to the college coach. They would have, you could use a friend. I wouldn't use a parent, but you could send an email and say, listen, if it's you, yourself, the athlete, you can send an email and say, I'm going to be on campus because I'm so interested in your school. I'm going to take an academic tour. That just tells coaches that you're super interested, especially at all those other levels. They love that too, because what it's telling them is, I want to go to your school. And believe it or not, all coaches of all levels want to recruit kids that are interested in going to their school.
Is you hold the largest Division I college coaches camp, and I believe you hold the only Division II NAIA coaches camp. Are both of those accurate?
Yes, I want to clarify the second one. It's not the only one. It's just the most attended one.
So the largest one of that level, D2 and NAIA.
Yeah, so the Division I camp that I've done now for, it'll be 5 years, has taken a few turns over the years. It was the largest gathering of Division I coaches in one area at once. I had another partnership the last 2 years that changed that a little bit. It still had a large number, but I want to get back to that. I had up to 50 D1 coaches all in the same place. That is that is an opportunity that kids in Utah and Idaho and Wyoming and Nevada have never experienced. And I'm here to tell you that those coaches that came were some of the best coaches in the country. It was amazing to watch. And I do a very unique camp.
Is it fair to say from the lowest level, Division I, to the highest, as in the NCAA Final Four champ, attend this Division I, NCAA Division I college coach camp?
The champions, have they attended?
We're talking about the highest level, from the lowest level to the highest level of Division I.
I had Final Four team. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
So are any kids able to come to this if they can find the means and get the information? Are they able to fly to Salt Lake City and be presented to the largest gathering of Division I college coaches in a camp?
Yeah, you can come from anywhere to come to this camp. We do max out at about 240. So when we get this information out, they have to register early. 2 years ago, we couldn't put any more kids in our gym. So yes, they can come from wide and far. We've had kids from California come because they saw the gathering of coaches that were there. We've had kids that were at a tournament that stayed over from the Midwest that came. So yes, any kid, we put this out here. It's a Club V camp, but we invite everyone to come because we want to showcase to these coaches that there's the best in the country here. So we don't limit it just to Club V kids. First, we didn't really touch on the D2 NAIA camp, and I want to be clear there. That camp is named that, and I also have junior colleges that come to that, and they watch kids to look at which kids. It's very big in December, and the reason it's a big deal, I want those coaches to have the opportunity to see these kids before they enter club, so that if they want to get a kid, they have the opportunity to get that kid as soon as possible. Even the junior colleges, I want to make sure they have that. And I bring in roughly 15 to 20 D2 and NAIA schools, and then as many junior colleges as I can get to come watch. So that is, I just want to clarify that. That is a really, really good camp for all levels, all ages of kids. But we really focus on those juniors and seniors, okay, for that camp. One of the things that I think I just want to leave in the minds of anyone that's interested in this and watches this is that anyone who wants to play can find a place to play. If you do the work, you put in the time, and you're willing to go anywhere, you can find a place to play. The other thing I want to say is that it's super important to make sure that how you act, we didn't touch on this for recruiting, how you act off the court to coaches when they're watching on the court is just as important as when you're on the court. When you see a coach standing there with his phone, he might not look or she might not look like she's watching you, but what they're doing is watching what happens when you're not in the play, when you're not on the court. So if a kid is on the sideline mad that they got pulled out, a coach isn't going to respond really well to that if a kid is having a bad attitude doing that. I've seen kids yell at their parents to go get water, go get me a snack, throwing stuff, throwing fit. They're watching what you're doing the entire time because that tells them if you have the character that matches them. Now, some coaches might not care about that. They might see a really great player and they don't care. But I would say most of the coaches at all levels are looking for that character and looking for a kid that they think they can work with and teach. And the last thing I want to leave is volleyball. I have always said that volleyball produces strong women. And I really want to promote that, how important it is for you to go out there and compete and work hard and become confident. And regardless of what level you end up, just put in the work and know that this is something that can be a lifetime sport that can change your life.
So what do you think are the top 3 things that college coaches either ask you about kids, and this can be at any level, or that they look for in players?
Well, sometimes it's just like their physical ability. Maybe they ask me what their approach touch is based on their size. Those kinds of things can sometimes be what the coach's first inclination is to look at a kid, is their physical abilities. But I would say probably 80% of the time, Coaches want to know the kid's personality and character. They want to know, is this a kid that's going to get along with others? Are they a leader? Are they going to do whatever they can for the team? What is their character? How do they act? That is probably the number one question I get after their physical abilities. Get them interested.
So always physical abilities first at the top level, because that's what wins matches and wins games. And then they want to know how good the kid is, personality-wise, school-wise, probably. So I guess those physical attributes, people who watch this want to know, what are the top 3 physical attributes that coaches look for? You said an approach touch, which I'm assuming is, as I approach to hit the ball, whether it be from the outside, the middle, wherever, it's how high I can get. What are the other 2 things that coaches want to know about their physical ability?
They want to know their skill base for whatever position that is. And volleyball, so that can be a wide range of things. If they're a middle blocker, if they're an outside hitter, if they're right side, if they're looking at a defensive player, that approach touch doesn't matter. However, they want to know, like if we're talking just hitters, that approach touch is usually number 1 based on size. They want, for big high programs, they want kids on that front line that are usually over 6 foot. That's pretty common. Of course, there's the rare kid that's, 5'9", 5'10", that can approach touch 10 foot. The next attribute is their quickness, their ability to score against a block, and also if they're a front row player, that ability to handle blocking a very large or aggressive kid on the other side. If they're a defensive player, they're looking for quickness and reading abilities, their versatility, and back to the front row players, they're also looking for that versatility if they're a pin player. Nowadays, it's very important that a right side and an outside can do more than just play those positions. They need to be able to step back and pass a ball or play defense, other attributes of what they're looking for. And then, of course, depending on the school and the level of the school, starts getting a little different how important other skill areas are for that.
So you mentioned big kids, front row players that are good at attacking, being able to play back row. Do you think that is true for NAIA schools that have unlimited substitutions? Do the coaches that you find still want those kids that can play all the way around? Or does it matter as much because they can sub in back row players as much as they want?
That's a good question, because that is really up to what a coach's preference and philosophy is. So it's kind of 50-50 when you're talking like an NAIA school. However, the majority of NAIA schools want kids playing pin positions that, especially an outside hitter, that can do back row and front row, and they're very versatile. And yes, they do use defensive players a lot for their other positions. Not as much for outsides. They'll do that for a right side and a middle blocker, but they can put in a defensive player at any time they need it. So if an outside hitter's tired and they just want to use them for hitting, of course, they'll put in a defensive player. But that's probably the biggest difference in like your smaller 4-year schools like NAIA and D3. Not as much D2 anymore, but for sure those other 2 4-year small programs, is they're still taking the smaller front row player, and they're getting more options with that player, because those players are able usually to do more in the back row as well.
Okay, so let's talk about questions that everybody wants to know about the recruitment process. Like number 1, what is probably the number 1 question you're asked about a kid if a college coach is asking about them?
They've already seen the kid and they know they like them physically.
What's the number 1 question? Is it how high they can jump? Is it what kind of a student they are?
So it's usually their physical skill based on their position. And every position, as you know, has different physical needs. So yes, it is their physical skill. Tell me how this kid passes. Tell me how this kid defends. How quick are their decisions if they're a setter? Are they able to make a lot of decisions as a setter? Do they run the middles fast and quick if they're a setter? Is the middle able to run a slide? Is the right side versatile? Can they run other things? Is the outside pass? They're asking me what their skill is and what level I would rank that skill. And
how often do they ask how high they can touch?
That's probably my number one question for a front row. Number one question for a front row player is how high they touch.
Okay.
You know me though. I don't want to give up on the defensive players. So come on, I had to add the defensive play.
So what are two of the biggest misconceptions that athletes and their parents have about the recruitment process?
Number one, that they're going to get a full ride scholarship. Number one misconception. Number two, that coaches, even if a kid is really good, that they don't understand why they're not going to a top school. And most of the time, I have to sit and explain that they're not recruiting your kid's position, or your kid's not a good fit for them, or you started too late in the process, but my kid is really, really good now. And for me to have to explain to them that it's not going to fit this school, you got to let that school go and find a school that kid's skill and abilities fit, is one of the hardest things I have to do, because parents and kids have in their mind, this is where I want my kid to go. This is where they belong. And sometimes that's just not a true fact.
So how much do college coaches look at or care about high school volleyball versus club volleyball, school volleyball?
Of course, that also depends on the level. But even at the junior college level, they're still watching club. They want a club kid. However, there are some small towns across the country. I know of small town Idaho and small towns outside of Nevada and Utah, but they're all over the country, that maybe all the opportunity they have is high school. And that's a little unique, but all levels want to see kids playing club, because that's where they're going to get the most experience and the most visibility. And that's really the film they want to see. Because let me use this as an example. You're playing in a small town, and the competition you're playing isn't going to make you look great. Even I should use Utah. We have big schools. If your competition that you're playing is low-level competition, which high school is lower level than top level club, it's not great film. It might be a lot of serve and no return. It might be a lot of hitting and no return. So you want to be able to give a coach a visual idea of how you do everything. And that's really hard to do if you're not able to do all aspects of the game.
Can high school coaches help their athletes get to a college of their choice, or do you think it depends on the club coaches? Is there anything high school coaches can do?
Well, I know a lot of great high school coaches that figure out how to get their kids places. I can think of a few right off the top of my head. And yes, they help, but they're also helping them by having them on a club team. If you do not have a club team in your area and you have a high school coach that's dedicated to trying to find you a place, there is a place for everyone to play. It just might be far away from home, and it might be a small school.
So getting to, I don't know, some I guess more interesting things here. How important is it to network between players and parents? And does it have any bearing trying to network with college coaches? Because you always see at these tournaments, parents trying to buddy up next to college coaches. Nobody knows if their kid's going there or what's going on, but they're always trying to talk to them. Some are standoffish and, but others try to talk to them. So is network any good? Can parents do anything to talk to coaches and say, hey, watch my kid?
I want to say this carefully and kindly. It's okay for parents to try to talk to various college coaches, but in all honesty, if they're not looking at your kid, they really don't want you in their ear while they're watching kids play. And you got to remember, a lot of times when parents have gone up and started talking to college coaches on the court, that coach might be watching the other team. And so they're not even there for their kid. And that brings us back to that misconception that they're just watching kids. And so some parents have the guts to walk up and just start talking. If the coach kind of looks standoffish, it's because they're not really supposed to be, if they happen to be looking at your kid, communicating with you if your kid is in competition. So they might just walk off or be like, hey, nice to see you, I got to go. Other levels of coaches can talk to you. They can communicate with you.
What levels are you talking about? Which can and which can't?
Your NAIA, D3, and JCs can be communicating. They don't always like that, though. Like, the coaches don't feel comfortable talking unless they have a relationship already. I want to be clear there. If they have a relationship, they'll be talking to parents. But they're not comfortable with it if you're just coming up trying to sell your kid. Because I'm a parent. I know I'm not putting parents down. I, too, love talking about my daughters that played college volleyball. But going up to college coaches and talking about, this is what my kid does, this is what they touch, this is what they're doing, they're so good, talking to them like that, it doesn't benefit the player because that can rub some coaches the wrong way. So I spend a lot of time educating our players' parents to just let the process take its space. And then once their kid is being recruited by schools, there's a little more room for communication there. And there's coaches at very high levels that'll walk up and shake a parent's hand and say hi. They'll be like, hey, nice to see you here, or whatever. But they're still not having extremely long conversations generally because they're there to watch the kids. And they also, there's a time for that and there's a time not for that. And at competition, that is not the time.
Okay, so sounds like that's a mistake. What are some common mistakes that players and their parents make during the recruitment process? And I guess, how can they avoid those mistakes?
When a kid has the opportunity to talk to coaches, whether it is on the phone or at a visit or at a camp, however that occurs for those players, the parent should not be talking. The coach wants to get to know the player. They want to know how they communicate. They want to know what they're interested in. And the biggest mistake that happens, and I've gotten these calls before, that the coach is like, wow, this parent really ran the show. I hardly even got to hear the kid talk. The parent asks too many questions. The parent sits there and tells the kid, are you going to answer that? They're really running it for their kid. You want to just sit back and watch the show and let your kid do it. Some kids are awkward at that stage. That's why I send kids questions to have in mind. I also tell kids to take a notebook with questions. Coaches love that. You sit there and say, hey, I have some questions and I don't want to forget them. And they have them in a notebook. That shows that the kid has their leader and they're interested in this program. If parents are going to ask questions, the best way to approach it is after, at the end of the call or after the visit. They say, is there a good time for me to ask you a few questions? And then they can ask questions.
So parents, don't speak for your kids. Kids, come prepared.
Yes, very prepared. You're interviewing them as well.
Okay, so, and we talked about this a little bit, but maybe we can talk a little bit more in depth. How can kids effectively get noticed by college coaches? You talked about a video, sending them a video, but is there anything they can do to get noticed by college coaches?
Notice like at a camp or while they're playing or what?
Anyway, I want to go to that school. I want that coach to know who I am. I want him to notice me, that I'm good.
You have to be sending them emails with film links over and over and over and trying to communicate with them.
If they're not interested, will a coach say, sorry, we're not interested, or will they drag them along?
No, they'll let them know that they're not interested in them.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't want to drag it along because they have other kids they want to look at.
So how should an athlete create a highlight video? Should they put music on it? Should they talk during it to say, hi, I'm so-and-so? How do you best recommend, or what do coaches like to see in a highlight video? Is it just straight to them playing? Well, how should it be created?
Really, I get told probably most of the time, it doesn't have to have any music. They're not going to want to listen to the music. They simply need to have their name, the name of their club, their position, and their graduation year. They go right into it with the first play. The play does not have to be a complete play. If the kid is an outside hitter, it's a hit, it's a hit, it's a hit. You don't have to see if the ball is dug. You just have to see where the hit went. You want to get as much action in that as possible, so you don't have to spend a lot of time waiting to see what happens next, is what I'm saying. It's boom.
So what
boom,
about
boom.
their number?
And that's, sorry, thank you for reminding me that. I was going to say, your number's not only important, and sometimes they wear different jerseys. So you might put the number at the beginning, or you might put a circle or an arrow showing where you are on the court.
Okay, so if I'm an outside hitter, I really don't want to show people digging my hits in a long rally. I want to show kill, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
You want to show that you're blocking, that you're killing, that you're getting passes if you're an outside hitter, that you can dig a ball and serve. All of that needs to be in the first minute. But depending on what kind of hitter you are, a middle blocker, right side, if you're a libero, you're going to show tons of serve, receive, serving, and defense, right? If you're a middle blocker, you're going to show how diverse you are and what kind of balls you can get. What kind of balls are you going to hit? Are you going to hit slides, quick balls? And you always want that film to occur from middle back as much as possible on the same side of the court, so they can see how you move, how your feet are, how your footwork is, your athleticism. Do you move laterally well? They can see you better. Now, occasionally in some of these, especially big tournaments and gyms, you might not be able to be in middle back. Left back is my second favorite place, and then right back is my least favorite because you can't see the whole court. But never do it from the side. It's just
You're saying where to film from?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't want mom or dad on there saying, oh, my kid's best. Oh, great hit. Coaches probably don't want to hear the narrating.
No sound. You don't want to hear that. And that's almost impossible not to do while you're watching your kids. So just make sure there's no volume. You don't have a sound on. No volume.
Okay, so what is the typical, not the ideal, but what's the typical timeline for a volleyball player's recruitment? Is it, I'm letting them know 9th grade and I'm signing my letter of intent as I don't even know when you sign a letter of intent anymore. What's the typical timeline?
The typical and the most common is they're in contact their sophomore year. They're going on visits and talking to coaches their junior year. And they're signing the fall beginning their senior year. That's when they sign.
And when are they able to sign? Just any time in the fall, or there's like a select date?
There's a specific date. It just passed. It changes. It does change. So the signing date just happened the beginning of November. It does change sometimes. It depends on quiet times and all of that. But all of those kids, and that's for Division I, that happens. and Division II, you can sign anytime your senior year for all of the rest of those. There's a late signing time in the spring. I don't have the date in front of me right now because it changed again. I believe it's April for Division I, but there's not many people signing at that time. So
Division I and Division II has dates to sign, and then the JC, NAIA, D3 all has whenever to sign?
Yeah, they'll get their letter of intent, and they're expected to sign it within a few days. There's no date. So, and that's because that's occurring their senior year already, right? So they can sign at that time. I've had kids, a matter of fact, just last year, I sent a kid after school started to a junior college. They needed a position still, got the kid there, they signed, they went there. And the school had already started. So there's a lot of possibilities for kids. And I think that's the number one thing I want to get across. And that's something that I'm really proud of, is that if you're going to a junior college, if you're going to an NAIA school, it's all relative, right? This is an opportunity for you to do what's best for you. And I think that's why our club has so much success. Number one, it's a great club and we have great kids. Number two, I really promote our kids right now, our 25s. I am busting doors down saying, look at this kid, see this kid. And I'm telling kids to get information out because I'm really proud, just as proud of the kid that's signing to go to a junior college as I am the kid that's going to a D1.
So how do you assess a player's potential beyond their current performance? So if they're a freshman or a sophomore, even a junior, are you able to see what their potential is where, they haven't had the years of volleyball necessarily? They're not maybe fully grown. They're not fully developed. How do you or even a college coach assess what the potential is for those kids?
Well, you have to see that it's a little bit of a chance, right? Because you're looking at them, seeing what their ceiling is. What is their ceiling? And when I say ceiling, what is their maximum potential? Is this a kid that I see as super athletic? And I think that with growth and development and skill base, they're going to just have an unreachable ceiling? Or is this a kid that is probably done growing and their skill is good, but it doesn't look like their athleticism is going to allow them to have a higher ceiling? So you spend a lot of time evaluating that movement, depending again on the position, but all kids' positions in volleyball is how do they move? Is it quick? Is it fast twitch? How do they jump? Are they in control of their bodies? Can they keep their bodies under control? Are they able to do things out of system? Are they able to recover quickly? Are they able to chase a ball down and save it? All of those things tell us that kids' ceiling and what their potential could be.
Switching topics here a little bit, social media and recruitment. What should players want to know about social media? I'm assuming that college coaches try to do their homework, try to do their due diligence on kids that they are maybe interested in or are interested in them. Do they look at kids' social media? If so, what are do's and don'ts? And also, what if mom and dad want my account locked? Does that send off any type of a red flag to coaches?
There used to be a time that social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, those were all really pretty well used. It was a pretty big deal. But what I'm finding now is, assistant coaches or the recruiting coordinators for this particular college might be spending time looking at that. I'm not hearing that a lot now. I'm hearing that they get to know the kid, and once they get to know the kid, if they're recruiting them, they might be accepted to be on their Instagram or whatever and follow them. They really need to have a volleyball Instagram if they're going to do that. And it's open. That's not where you're showing that you're going to dances or you're with your buddies. It is a volleyball Instagram now. And that has to be open to everyone.
Don't coaches want to see what the kid is really like? If I'm a boy and I'm trying to play college volleyball, if I'm doing some pranks or if I'm vandalizing something, aren't college coaches going to see that?
No kid is, I can't say no kid. They're too prepared to do that anymore. They're going to have a volleyball Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And college coaches know that, so they're not spending a lot of time looking at those things. So they're counting on coaches and recruiting coordinators to help them with that character, and then they want to build a relationship to see what that kid is like. The Instagram world, that social media world, is too fake now. They can make it look however they want, and so they're very careful with that. The kids are, when I say that, and so are the parents.
What if I'm a high school girl and my parents don't care and I have pictures of me, all my pictures are bikinis of me, and maybe less. Maybe I'm wearing just scantily clad stuff. Does that affect coaches' judgment, decisions on me? Do I want to be careful about that, or does it not matter? Maybe they like the way I look.
Well, you want to present yourself the way you want people to see you, and that's what I tell kids. However, there's always that out there. We both know that. There's kids out there doing things that they shouldn't do. Maybe there is a red Solo cup behind them and it looks like they were at a party, or they're in a very interesting type of dress code, right? No, you shouldn't be putting that on there generally at all if you want them to look at you and the importance of you in your sport and what kind of character you have. But I'm sure it's out there. I just am hearing that coaches aren't spending a lot of time looking at that because kids are being instructed nowadays on how to make that look professional. So like for me, I do check that out. And I do tell all of the kids in our club, you don't want to have an account like that. You want to have a volleyball account, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure it's out there. I just don't see that as much anymore because they're being very careful what they put out on social media. I'm sure we can find the one kid that's not, but.
So how, once kids make the, get their dream, and whether it's a JC or a big Division I school, how do offers usually come? Do they come in the mail? Do they come by email? Are they just verbal? How do kids get offers, and are they always signing those offers? What I guess educate us about that.
Okay, it's different. It's different for every kid. It's an individual thing. So depending on how much money they get, depends on if they get an offer. Like a coach is going to talk to you verbally about what they're going to do. So they might say at all levels, they might say, this is how much money I have for this position, and it's going to be $3,000. I'm just using a number right now. It's going to be $3,000 each year. That could be some program that said that. Or maybe at a Division I level, you'll have to walk on a few years, so you'll get 2 for 4 years. Or, and this gets very intricate in each level, so it's very different in each level of volleyball.
Okay, so hold on. So can a Division I give a certain amount of money, or is it a full ride or not at all? And what I mean by full ride is you have an entire year paid for, or you don't have anything. Okay,
so that used to be the case up until right now. There's a new rule change, and they are making Division I go to only 18 total roster spots. And so they can, and I don't have this completely clear yet because it's brand new, so I have to research it, but they can split the money up, like give them a percentage each year. It did not used to be that way up until right now. You could only get, 2 years, and you could use other money the other 2 years, but you couldn't mix it. I have to look at that rule to see if that's still the case for Division I, because they're in the process of changing that. That's how it was in Division I originally. Now with the NIL, it's changing because they can use that money with a scholarship, okay? So there's a lot of different pieces to that with the letter of intent and the NIL. So there's some different things happening in Division I that makes that scholarship look a little bit different, okay?
So it sounds like no matter what level, though, if they're offered any type of money, they are going to get an actual letter of intent.
Yes, okay. You're going to get an offer that explains it, and you have to sign that letter of intent for how much money that is.
So can walk-ons, kids that get no money, do they sign anything?
They sign something, but they don't sign a contract with the athletic program. No, all they sign, if you see a kid signing that doesn't get money and they're walking on, they're signing an acceptance letter to the school.
Okay, so just because a kid is holding a signing, it really does matter what they are signing. It could either be a letter of acceptance to the college, which is any student, or it's an actual letter of intent with money and a scholarship attached.
Right.
Okay. And, all right.
And we promote our kids, so we're not trying to fool anybody when they do that. We used to do that. Now the kids do it with their parents. So I think that was another misconception, that people think everybody gets a letter of intent and a full ride. That's not the case.
Okay, so one of the things we like to do here on FarmBoys podcast is do something called a lightning round, and we've done 2 or 3 already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to give me your just initial thought, one-word answer. It can be anything, and then we might build off of some of these answers or talk more about them. So are you ready for the FarmBoys podcast lightning round, Tawna?
I'm ready.
Okay, first question. What's the most important trait in a player?
Great character.
Indoor or beach?
Beach.
Favorite tournament to go to that college coaches attend?
SoCal.
Dream college program to work with?
Oh, that's hard. That one's really hard.
One word answer.
That one's tough. Dreams. Okay. Texas. I've never got to work with them.
Top skill to master?
Passing and serving.
Must-have quality for team captains?
Leadership.
Highlight video length?
3 minutes.
Best recruiting season?
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. We'll skip it. Preferred age to start scouting?
Sophomore.
One essential social media platform?
Instagram.
Ideal GPA for recruits?
4.0.
Best state for volleyball talent?
Oh, geez. You'll get me in trouble there. You got to go with the numbers. California and Texas, probably.
Just one. Most overrated volleyball skill?
People are going to hate me when I say this. Overrated?
Yes, lightning round. Overrated.
Blocking.
Most underrated volleyball position?
Defense, passing. Defense and passing.
Key to standing out. One word.
Desire and never give up. That's 2 words.
Okay, much like my co-host and other people who have done this, it's almost impossible to answer in 1 word, obviously. So we'll eventually find somebody that can do it. But for now, not bad. Not bad answers there.
I did good until you put me in a pickle.
kids that don't have somebody like you are probably tempted to use a recruiting service that they've gotten an email about or that they've heard about, or somebody's trying to peddle to them. What would you say to those kids and those parents who are thinking about using a recruiting service? Good, bad, indifferent. Certain ones are good. I guess, what would be your opinion if they don't have a recruitment coordinator such as yourself?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm sure there's a place for somebody to use those. I'm talking about volleyball specifically. I have heard for other types of sports that those need to be used. So I'm only speaking for volleyball.
Okay.
Here is my opinion about this. I think that if a parent and kid doesn't want to do any of the work, the film, the setting up their profile, they don't want to do the social media aspect. They want somebody to just come in and do it all. Then they hire a big recruiting firm. They're going to take care of all of that. However, I do want to point this out. They're going to find your kid a place to play, but it's not going to be a personalized fit. And the reason I say that is because college coaches aren't just getting kids sold to them. They're connecting with people that they trust and know. And so the reason I think that's so important is I think kids need to go somewhere that they feel valued and it's a good fit, not just a set, and it fits their skill too. It's not just selling a kid. And I feel like college coaches don't want just a kid sold to them. They want the kid doing the work because that tells them the kid wants to come to their school really bad. So the best stories I've heard, even if they don't have a person like me, is a kid that finds out how to do the process and they beat and they beat and they beat the door down and they make it happen. And yes, if they have a coordinator there to help them, that's great. But they still, even with me, the coaches are telling me that kid's not talking to me enough. This kid isn't reaching out enough. Like, they want to hear from the kid. They want to get to know the kid, even if that is raw, even if the kid is raw and it doesn't seem like they're prepared. I've had kids not be able to talk to coaches very well on the phone. And coaches say, they struggled on the phone, but I'm glad they did it. We'll try it again. We'll try it again. So I just think that to spend $3,000 or $4,000 to get recruited, I don't know that a kid is going to be happy where they finally get placed if that's the case.
So are you able, not anyone else, but are you able then, from what you just said, to get a kid recruited to a school that maybe they want to go to just based on your word? Are you able to convince a coach to take a kid on your expertise, what you've seen, what you tell them?
I first want to say, I would only do that if a kid fit their skill level, of course. I would never try to sell a kid, okay? That's why coaches, I think, trust me and like me, because I'm going to tell them the truth about every aspect.
So the answer is yes.
If I have a coach call me and say, listen, I like this kid. Do you think this kid's going to work in my program? And I say yes, they're going to recruit that kid. They are going to offer.
You could make or break a kid's future.
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I want to answer that. That's why I'm so careful with making sure I let them open a lot of doors and let the process take them where they go, because I never want to be a person that breaks that, but I let that process happen and then I help them move through that door.
So knowing this, are there other people that have the same persuasiveness as you do with coaches? Are there other people? Oh, yes, I'm sure. Yes. So it goes back to, once again, it's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know. It does help even a lot, in recruiting. Yes. That's why I work so hard on personal relationships with coaches. I spend a lot of time on that.